Class is in session, hitting the books, college football show for Monday, December 23rd. This is our final college football edition of Hitting the Books for 2024. So we're going to have you covered basically for the remainder of the bowl games. We've only got 4 more bowl games left to talk about, and it's the post-January 1st bowl games in the new year. And we'll also tee up the 4 quarterfinal matchups, which will be headed our way on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So this will be a very short show compared to many of them that we've had this year. Ian Cameron, Connor Mack, with you as always. Connor, basically the way it's gone for me is the playoff games kicked my ass from a betting perspective for the most part. But the bowl games that haven't been the playoff games, like the regular bowl games, I've done very well so far. So it's been it's been weird. Hopefully we get the playoff games better results going forward. With the quarterfinals. I do think there are some good bets coming up with the quarterfinal round of the college football playoffs. So that's where I'm at. Playoffs have not been kind to me, but the bowl games have been. Your thoughts on the playoff games and the bowl season, C-Mac, so far?
Yeah, the bowl games, they got every year more and more because money is involved. It's just they're grinding, looking into it, and who's in, who's out. It's just more and more, as we see in this football game right now. One team has shown up, a team that was horrible on the road all year or on a neutral, just anywhere from away from the Alamo Dome. It's just kicking ass. It doesn't have the best defense, so there you go. There you go.
No doubt. And obviously that's one of many.
And blowouts.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get better games, hopefully, here. Blowout City.
You're right. Blowout City indeed with many of these bowl games, with all 4 playoff games. I guess for a little bit, it looked at times like maybe Clemson, Texas would go down to the wire. But other than that, none of these games were even the least bit dramatic or tense down the stretch. It was a blowout for Notre Dame over Indiana, and it was only a closer final score because Notre Dame totally took their foot off the gas pedal in the fourth quarter. Penn State just rolled over SMU. Although I'm going to talk about some things about that Penn State team that would concern me about that SMU game, believe it or not, going into their Boise State game in the quarterfinal round. And then, of course, credit to Ohio State, just demolished Tennessee. They certainly had the bad taste in their mouth, and they seemed like a team hell-bent on making amends for that Michigan performance, and it was their best game of the year. It was finally a game where the ceiling of talent that Ohio State had, it showed up, both sides of the football. Will Howard was lights out. Jeremiah Smith, amazing for 17 years old, that freshman receiver. Henderson and Judkins were great running the ball, and that defensive line devoured Nico Iamaleava and that Tennessee offensive line. They just looked like that complete team finally. We've been waiting on that. We know the talent is as good as it gets in college football this year, Ohio State. Hadn't always seen a game like that from them, but we sure saw it Saturday. And then Texas, dominant offensively against Clemson as Quinn Ewers and company do whatever they want against that Clemson defense. Any thoughts you wanted to mention, C-Mac, about those 4 first-round playoff games?
No, not really. I think we can.
That's pretty much the gist of it. Who wants to talk about?
Shout out! Yeah, well, it's the past. Shout out! I think Ohio State was kind of the big, everything that be going around, and maybe Tennessee wasn't there. I was just trying to catch Ohio State, but when a team plays that well early, you got to give your hats off to them. You know what I mean? The home team took care of business. They just flat did. I thought it'd be tough for SMU. That was really the only one. And right as soon as they didn't get that 4th down, it was over. No doubt. Over.
Exactly. No question. All right, let's talk about what's to come. The ghosts of we're going to be the ghosts of Christmas future here, essentially, on the Hitting the Book show today, because we're going to talk about what's coming up in the future. We're going to start with the 4 bowl games that we have still yet to discuss, and they are the games from January 2nd to January 4th. We'll begin with the Gator Bowl, Duke versus Ole Miss. This is in Jacksonville, Florida, home of the Jaguars. We've got Ole Miss 14.5 point favorites, 52 the total here in this game. Now, if you wonder why Ole Miss is such a big favorite, this is actually a team that you wondered where their heads were going to be at for Lane Kiffin's team, right? Not just barely missing the playoff. They certainly had their chances, but a couple of the losses down the stretch really ended up hurting this team. and their chances, obviously, of making the playoff. You wondered how excited would they be to play here in the Gator Bowl. But from all indications, a lot of the best players for Ole Miss are suiting up. It looks that way. So, and including Jackson Dart, most importantly, he has already said he's going to play in this bowl game for Ole Miss, which is why this line's actually gone up a little bit. Meanwhile, you look at Duke. Malik Murphy's opted out. He's on his way to Auburn. Henry Beelan, the fourth, is going to get the start here at quarterback for the Blue Devils in this game. And again, limited sample size is what we have with him as a quarterback here at the collegiate level. So very, very hard to decipher what you're going to get. And, from him this year, he's only made, I believe, looks like one pass attempt this year for 7 yards. It was a completion for 7 yards. That's it. Now, last year, he got into 4 games. He was 13 of 26 for 50% completions, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. So he actually didn't play that bad. But again, it's just a very, very small sample size. So it's really hard to project how he's going to play. And it's not going to be easy considering the fact that, you're going up against an Ole Miss team that has a very, very solid defensive front, probably one of the better ones they've had in some time. So it's one of those games where it's difficult to take Duke because of just how much is going to be missing from this team. And it's not just Malik Murphy gone, but it looks like there's a couple players in the transfer portal that might not play here in this one. But obviously Malik Murphy being gone is massive. And it looks like Ole Miss, despite falling short of the playoff, Connor Mack, they look like they're going to give it their best shot here in this bowl game, and a team that actually cares, about playing in one of these bowl games despite not getting to their ultimate goal. So right now for me, maybe an Ole Miss team total over. Sometimes I do that with the bigger favorites. Don't know if I'll lay the 14, but as of now, I don't have much interest taking Duke. What do you think here, CMAC Gator Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like everyone's going to, for the most part, play here for Ole Miss. And good. And I'd like to see it. So okay.
It's about time.
I don't know who the hell's playing
at
all. Both these defenses are good. Ole Miss, really good. I mean, you got to put into kind of Duke, how they're playing. Duke's secondary was excellent, but I don't know how on the switch to the offense side of the ball, Duke's really going to do anything in this game. Like I just like their defense would have to keep them in it. It just seems like this seems like a blowout type game. We just saw Florida. It was kind of an easy win with just a quarterback here in Duke that I've seen a little bit of he play. I mean, he's going to get 8 up here, Pavano. So I looked to Ole Miss, their team total, even lay it. I think you could lay the 2 touchdowns in this game. And it kind of was a bad end of the year for them. The bad loss, the whole Jackson Dart, all the picks against Florida. They do beat Mississippi State, but way down. That's a great rivalry, but they've just been way down. So kind of an exclamation point type win here for Ole Miss. And they might want to run it up too in these games. You know what I mean? Just to say, hey, we should have been in there. Type shit these teams like to do. So yeah, I'd look to lay it here, or even the Duke team total under, because this Ole Miss unders were excellent, at least for me on them all year long.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing. That's what's if you project the game to be a blowout, especially in the bowl season, sometimes you get the unders because you just don't get enough from the one team. And we're seeing that right now with the bowl game that is taking place as we record this video with Coastal Carolina and UTSA. UTSA is going to do their part, but you're getting nothing out of Coastal offensively. So you're in good shape if you have the under. And that could be one of these deals where it's like 35 to like 14 or something in favor of Ole Miss. And if that's the case, it goes under. All right. Same with this game a little bit with as far as that thinking, where maybe one team's going to do all the scoring. North Texas and Texas State. This is the first responder bowl. Texas State, 13.5-point favorites, 64 the total. High total for obvious reasons based on their full season numbers. These are 2 teams that were lethal offensively, but not the greatest defensively, especially North Texas. But when you look at this bowl game here for North Texas, Chandler Morris, who is great for them at quarterback this year, he's committed to Virginia. He's on his way out. He won't play. We're down to either basically 2 freshmen, or one of them is going to start. Drew Mestemaker or Cash McCollum is what we're looking at here. to be the quarterback for North Texas. And sometimes you have to evaluate a drop-off from one quarterback to the next guy differently. This would be a pretty big drop-off because you go from Chandler Morris, who's one of the better quarterbacks probably in the AAC. He's the one that kept North Texas afloat in so many games, how well he played. But it looks like Mestamaker is going to be the starter. He's officially been named the starter, says Eric Morris. He so far this year has gotten into 3 games with going 4 for 5, 80% completion, 69 yards. But again, it's a very, very small sample size again that we're working with here with Mestamaker. So that's going to be interesting to see. A lot in the transfer portal, too, for North Texas. They've got a couple receivers in the transfer portal, the starting centers in the transfer portal, a couple of safeties and players in the pass defense in the secondary in the transfer portal. The O-line was banged up late in the season as well. So there's a reason why North Texas or Texas State rather is taking all the money. There's a lot of concerns here and red flags about North Texas and what you're going to get from them here in this game. For Texas State, this is a team that offensively with McLeod, certainly that was the strength of the team, is being able to move the football and certainly being able to have a ton of success, as far as putting up points, no question about it. We'll see how they fare here in this. I mean, they're absolutely lethal offensively, and we saw that down the stretch. They scored 38 points or more in each of their last 4 games. McLeod, his ability to throw, his ability to move. Mahdi, the running back, is tremendous for them. And it looks like for Texas State here, Mahdi is in the transfer portal, so they might miss him, but he hasn't for sure confirmed he's out. Because keep in mind, just because you're in the transfer portal doesn't mean you're for sure not able to play in the bowl game. And some of these guys choose to play in the bowl game. I think what I would look at here is, certainly North Texas, as we know, defensively, they've had some issues. Question is, what are you going to get? To me, it's favored or pass. There's too many concerns I have with North Texas, and I get why they've taken the money. But I don't know if I'll lay it at this point. Like that Texas State defense, if we're being completely honest, it's a question of can Mestamaker and the North Texas offense take advantage of it. But the Texas State defense in their last 2 games against Georgia State and South Alabama gave up 90 points combined. That doesn't feel like a defense I'm fully comfortable laying 13.5. I get it as far as the roster situation and the opt-out situation and the way things are looking in the transfer portal, not to mention Chandler Morris, of course, is now not there, and it's a huge drop at quarterback for UNT. All that being said, I'm not sure I'm ready to lay this many here with Texas State. Could this game maybe stay under just because, look, if North Texas is going to struggle with all these offensive line issues and quarterback with very limited experience, could even Texas State's struggling defense maybe can keep them in check? Because I know why it's 64. Explosive offenses. They both play extreme fast tempo throughout the course of the season. But, man, 64 when you got concerns about one side in particular offensively, and I have those concerns with North Texas, it does feel like it's a pretty high total given those circumstances. C-Mac, what do you think here? North Texas, Texas State.
Yeah, I think with no Morris, no Sheffield in this one. I mean, you're basically just going down to the quarterback and estimate. I mean, if he can really throw it around, we know the North Texas defense isn't great, and a few of these guys are out. I don't know if that changes anything. Texas State's defense was the whole kind of hit and miss all year. They were like some games they look better. You talked about the bad games at the end, and there were some other ones where they could look really good against the bad teams and then just give up a shit ton of points. It's even like I remember early on in the year, Sam Houston, a team doesn't score a lot, like way up on them, and they give up 35 points, ended up losing that game. And then other games like Arkansas State and some of these other, they just beat them down. It was, I think 41-10 in that game, 41-9. So they should have plenty, like you talked about, the running back if he's going to play. I don't know if he does, but you got to stay on top of all these guys if they're out. With that defense, I can't lay it here with Texas State. I can't do it. I think they could still give up some points to this North Texas team that's still solid. It's tough with no Morris. Obviously, that's why the line's here. But I got to look into it a little bit more because I kind of want, if this gets over 2 touchdowns, maybe look North Texas way. But there's a lot of digging in these games, as we talked about from the start with the blowouts here.
All right, next up, we've got the Mayo Bowl, one of our favorites, one of our favorite post-game
Dukes.
celebrations too in the bowl games as well. In this bowl game, Minnesota, Virginia Tech. We've got Minnesota 6.5-point favorites, 42.5 the total in this game. Minnesota on a friggin' run down the stretch, no question. They finished the year 5-2 straight up, 8-2 against the spread their last 10 games. However, during that span, their best win was Illinois, maybe USC. Did feast on a bit of a weak schedule. We also remember they lost to Penn State, they lost to Michigan, they lost to Iowa. The games against the three better teams. Lost to Rutgers actually as well, 26-19. You look at them. Look, they were a covering machine down the stretch. Absolutely. Brosmer definitely got better in the passing game. Darius Taylor running the football with a great deal of effectiveness. And from all indications, it looks like Minnesota, not many opt-outs here for them as of now. And it sounds like it's as far as they're concerned, I'm looking at their roster right now. Minnesota going into this bowl game. Darius Taylor's good to go as of now. Brosmer's playing. So it looks like it's still going to be a relatively enthusiastic team. Only Trey Harris, the receiver, is a concern, but that's injury-related more than anything. Virginia Tech, they've got a couple of starters on the O-line that have transferred out. Are they going to play? Doubtful at the moment. A couple of other starters on the defensive side of the football potentially out. Concerns at the quarterback spot. Kyron Drones, Colin Schlee, their top two receivers, were banged up at the end of the year. Drones is definitely not, as of now, not going to play according to the head coach. So we're looking at either William Watson or Schlee. And Schlee played a lot this year. So I think if it's Colin Schlee, he can come in and play well. Because remember, this guy played at Kent State before that, a lot of experience. If we go down to the third quarterback, William Watson, if Schlee can't go, then things probably get just a little bit more dicey here as far as what to expect here from this Virginia Tech offense. William Watson on the season, 26 for 46, 56.5% completions, 400 passing yards, one touchdown, one interception. Like I said, he did get into 3 games, though, and he did play against Virginia down the stretch of the season as well, and actually played all right. 14 for 21, 67% completions for Virginia Tech. So even with Watson, and the thing that I'm concerned about here is the betting markets are going to see that William Watson might be the quarterback, and they've already bet Minnesota to 6.5 here. They might even push it up more if he's confirmed the quarterback. And if it were to get above 7, even with Watson, I might then be interested in the Hokies here, quite honestly, because his numbers weren't that bad. Again, he played Virginia again in that Virginia game, a game that Virginia Tech won 37-17. And again, he was pretty solid. And Tutton had a great day running the football as well to help him out. But Watson looked competent. And he didn't make mistakes, no turnovers, which was good to see. If there's an overreaction to Watson starting, if Schlee is out, in addition to Drones, who's definitely not playing, I might grab Virginia Tech at the best number possible here. CMAC, what do you think here for the Mayo Bowl?
Yeah, let's see if it goes over a touchdown. It's just so short. I think he's definitely the guy you'd want to be playing here is Watson. I mean, he's more athletic, even though I've seen enough of Schlee. I know he can run it, but both style of those quarterbacks are similar. But I'd rather have him in. You talked about the secondary, the corner that's out. Their safety Phillips is out, and the couple of starting linemen, won't be here, and there might be a few others right before the game. One thing with Minnesota, on flip on there, yeah, I thought they played well, 7-5, but this team was great against the number. 9-2-1, and even decent when they were favorites, kind of like this number. They did lose to Rutgers as this number, but some other games they took care of business. This one's tough for me. Yeah, I think if you get a touchdown, I kind of look at Virginia Tech, even because I just think this game's tight. And when I look at that, Minnesota definitely has a little bit more of the advantage on the defensive side in this one, and that's why we have this total at 43. It might be too low. Virginia Tech played a little bit more to the over, and that defense kind of came and went depending on who they were playing. At home a little bit better than on the road. So yeah, I'm leaning to the dog here if I get over a touchdown in a low-scoring game.
All right, our last of the 4 bowl games after January 1st, we've got Buffalo and Liberty. We've got Buffalo 2-point road favorites, not road favorite, 2-point favorites, 51 the total. Of course, this down in Nassau, the Bahamas, a nice way to wrap up the bowl season with these two teams. We've seen a flip of favorites here, and I understand why that is. It looks like, as far as Liberty is concerned, Caden Salter has transferred to Colorado, joining Dion there with the Colorado Buffaloes. And so his status here for this bowl game is he's not playing. They've already said he's done. And then you look at what else they've got going on. They've got their other quarterbacks on the depth chart. Ryan Berger, he's in concussion protocol, may not play. They've got Jaden Bradford, who's apparently as of now out for the rest of the year due to surgery. He ain't playing. There's a chance it could be Nate Hampton, and you're going way down the depth chart. You're talking about, I think, the fourth quarterback he is behind the other three guys that could be starting here for Liberty. And when you go that deep into the depth chart on some of these, non-power conference football teams, we're seeing it today with Coastal. Like, this guy is really struggling, and he's like the third, fourth quarterback on the Coastal team, and he can't get anything done so far today. And you worry about that here with Nate Hampton, that he's just down on the depth chart. What are you going to get from him? It looks like Quentin Cooley, the great running back, looks like he's going to play as of now. But again, watch out for this. This game is January the 4th, so it's still a long way off. Things could change. But as of now, it looks like the starting running back here for Liberty will play. I think Buffalo is pretty enthusiastic about this game. We haven't seen too much as far as transfer portal movement. There's one guy in the transfer portal so far, one for Buffalo. That's it. Meanwhile, you've got, like I said, Salter went in the portal for Liberty. Multiple linemen went in the portable on both sides of the ball for Liberty. I get why the money's moved on Buffalo. I agree with it. Some of that's mine because I've already taken Buffalo money line here in this game, and I don't mind backing the MAC in bowl games. We saw Western Michigan cover. This is a conference that, believe it or not, in the bowl games has done pretty solid here the last few years. So, and plus when you factor in, what was Liberty playing in last year? Oh yeah, the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon on New Year's Day last year. You go from that to playing here, Bahamas Bowl, a lesser game, lesser opponent. They might be treating this like a business, like a vacation. Just get to the Bahamas, enjoy the warm weather. I'm sure Buffalo will too, because we're talking about a program from the freezing winter cold of December, and you get the Buffalo kids in that warm weather. They'll enjoy it too. But I just think Buffalo's more equipped here in this game based on the personnel and the rosters to be able to get the job done and end up winning this bowl game. So I agree with the flip of favorites here, and I certainly agree with Buffalo taking the money in this one. I like Buffalo, and you can get still minus 130 or so on the money line with the Bulls in this game. I think that's the side to look at. C-Mac, what do you think here, Bahamas Bowl?
Yeah, it's tough to back here, Liberty, with Hampton at quarterback. One thing, I just don't know how much he's going to be able to throw it here. Like, can he have some success on this Buffalo defense? Because one thing, if Cooley's in, hand the ball off. They should be able to run it, though, on this Buffalo team. This Buffalo defense was not the best. I thought the total was low. I think it all goes to that. Can they score a little bit here in this one? Because I think Buffalo can, if you look at Buffalo, lay the 2 or look to their team total in this game. One thing down the stretch, Buffalo could score. I know some bad teams, but act with Ball State, 41, that crazy game. Eastern Michigan, 37. Western Michigan, a high-scoring game, 48-41. So I'd look to their team total. I think they can get there. A Liberty defense that just wasn't very good. Some of the numbers are okay, but, man, definitely a down year if you talked about the big bowl from last year and with Salter gone. But look to the over and Buffalo team total here. I'll be on.
Yeah, Buffalo certainly was kind of an over team. CJ Ogbonna was a pretty good quarterback for them. He's still working progress.
I think he's good enough.
He's athletic. Yep.
Yeah, he's athletic for sure. Yep.
Yeah, I like them. I certainly would lean over. I certainly would. 51 being the total here in this one. All right, now we move on to the main event, the CFB, the quarterfinal round of the college football playoff, and it begins on New Year's Eve at night. on Tuesday, December 31st, with the Fiesta Bowl college football playoff quarterfinal matchup between Penn State and there we go. Boise State. I blanked on it for a minute. Yeah, Penn State 11-point favorites, 52 the total here in this game. Penn State, let's really do a deep dive of that game because now we're talking Penn State in this matchup against Boise, laying, a pretty sizable number. We're talking 11, and it's gone up a bit. It opened 10, 10.5. It's up to 11. It's gone up slightly, but it hasn't gone up astronomically here on Penn State. Looks dominant on paper, right? They just completely dominated SMU, and the defense feasted on Kevin Jennings and a bunch of mistakes in that game and ended up romping. Lost in the mix, though, of that game is some things that would concern me. To me, I come out of that game thinking, okay, Penn State rolled over SMU. Good for them. They're going to have to play better in this game because, to me, Kevin Jennings and SMU, especially in the first quarter, they were moving the ball. They were moving the ball deep into Penn State territory. They'd get it inside the 20, and then there's that disaster play from Kevin Jennings. Or they'd take a sack, or they'd take a penalty, or they'd miss a field goal. That's the kind of shit we were seeing from SMU early in that game because early in that game, they were moving the football effectively against Penn State. But again, you just can't overcome the failures in the red zone, the failures on, field goal attempts, penalties that took, field position away. Obviously the 2 pick sixes were demoralizing that Kevin Jennings threw in that game. But when he wasn't making mistakes, and unfortunately made too many, and it cost them in that 38-10 loss, there were, SMU was moving the ball. Let's not forget they still put up, almost 300 yards. The total yardage difference between the two teams wasn't as great as you would think for a 38-10 beatdown. And it was really Penn State's defense, really, really doing all the work. To me, for Drew Aller, it wasn't a phenomenal game. It was actually a solid game for the run game. They just wore down Penn State late, Singleton and Allen. But I was not impressed by Aller. I don't think Aller played a great game, and he didn't have to because of.
Are you ever impressed?
Yeah.
Did he really ever impress you?
No. So, it's one of those games
No.
where I come out of that game, it looks like a blowout, and they owned it for sure. But I'm not impressed. I don't feel like I'm ready to lay the 11 with Penn State. Now, I do admit, Boise State here in this game, Maddox Madsen's the kind of fucking quarterback I could see making some of the mistakes Kevin Jennings made. Okay, and that's where I'm a little bit concerned about backing Boise. As you can tell, I don't have a strong, really, opinion on this game. It's one of those where, as of now, I don't have this. I don't feel like I'm going to be involved in anything significantly from a side perspective. The total sitting at 52. The key is going to be for Boise. Can they get the great Heisman Trophy candidate? He didn't win it, but he was certainly in the mix as a candidate. Ashton Jeanty. Can they get him going on the ground? Because if this has to be a one-dimensional through-the-air offense for Boise, it's not going to be successful, in my opinion, here against Penn State. When you look at Penn State and the numbers against stopping the run, they've been great this year. 7th in the country against the run, 100.3 rushing yards per game allowed. Very, very impressive. SMU got absolutely zero going on the ground against them in that game. But Oregon, is a team that I go back again to that Big Ten championship game where they gave up the 45 points. Oregon was able to run for 183 against that Penn State defense where Jordan James went for 87. Noah Whittington went for 82 against that Penn State defense. And to me, the Boise State run game is certainly more prolific and potent than SMU. And so I'm kind of back and forth on this game. I could see Penn State owning the trenches. It wouldn't totally shock me because, look, they just have bigger beef, along the lines, offensive and defensive lines than Boise. It's that simple. But at the same point in time, you're talking about a Boise team that's certainly got more of a run game and certainly a way more dynamic back coming to the table here in Ashton Jeanty than anything SMU saw, and more like what Oregon gave Penn State or showed Penn State. And Penn State had issues against the run in that game. So it's a very, very tough game for me. I think you can make good cases to lay it and say this is going to be another Penn State where they just roll over a team where they just got better athletes and better, personnel, no question. And as Bama Boy says, I can understand it. That's definitely the case. As I've said, the lines of scrimmage, definite advantage Penn State, both sides, offensive line and defensive line. And maybe that's going to be enough to roll here against Boise. But 11, and you get away from everything was set up perfectly too, Connor Mack, situationally. SMU is coming to the cold weather from Dallas. You're at Happy Valley, Beaver Stadium, the whiteout. Certainly had the home crowd in your favor. This is now a neutral site in Tempe, the Fiesta Bowl. So you don't have that same advantage as far as the home field and the home crowd and all that if you're Penn State here either. This, for me, is, from a side perspective, the toughest side for me as far as the 4 quarterfinals. I'm probably not going to have anything. I'll probably bet something live if I see a good number or I see something in the game that makes me think momentum might swing in one direction. But nothing for me side-wise. Can we get – I'm leaning over here, but I don't love that. I feel we're indoors. And that's another thing, too. We saw 3 unders, and 1 over in the first round, but we were outdoors in all the games. And all the 3 unders were the cold weather places, right? Ohio State, Tennessee went over as well.
That got over, didn't it?
That got over as well. My bad. But we have controlled climates here in all these games. Fiesta Bowl, Peach Bowl, Sugar Bowl. They're all indoors in dome stadiums. And then the Rose Bowl in Pasadena is the one outdoor place, and you don't have to worry about weather. It'll be fine. It'll be beautiful like it always is for the Rose Bowl. So scoring should be enhanced by the climate we're going to be playing these 4 quarterfinal games in. So I lean over here in this game, but I'm stumped on the side. And as of now, no bet for me. C-Mac, what do you think here, the first quarterfinal in the Fiesta Bowl?
Yeah, Penn State definitely, I think, when it comes down to it, you look at these 2 teams, has the better defense. And they did. And then, of course, Jennings with the mistakes, it showed. I thought them just being at home in that cold weather right away just kind of to help them out. And then SMU, just the mistakes, the 4th down right when they were down there early in just killed them. It was downhill from there. It just was flat over for them. I don't really trust Drew Aller at all. I think they could run on this team. Boise's secondary, I thought, got a little bit better as the year went on in some of these bigger games that they had. I still don't trust their secondary, really. And one key with Boise, of course, is Genty. I mean, that's the big one here. He's going to get the rock a ton. I think he's going to have some success in this game. You hit on it with Jennings, could this guy have a bad game? It's Madsen. All year long, he didn't. He didn't. And even in that Oregon game in the earlier part of the year, maybe that's all he needs to do here. I think he had a pick in that game, and maybe he had a touchdown or just nothing, but he just had 150 yards. Maybe he's got to make a few more plays. But I think he had 22 touchdowns on the year, only 3 picks. If he doesn't have one of these awful games, I think Boise State's in this one. I think they can hang around a little bit. James Franklin gets the big win. Hoo-ha. You want to back him again and lay doubles? Not at home here. I don't. I think Penn State might win this football game. I think Boise's in this. They're in it. They're going to be prepared for this one. So I lean to take the 11 with Boise, which I wanted nothing really to SMU. I thought they'd get killed, and they did. But the Penn State defense could be the one suffocating thing. And that really jump-started the game last week, the pick sixes. Yeah. That was right away.
Penn State was struggling to move the football for early parts of that game. And SMU was moving the football. And then, of course, the pick sixes, and it really gave life to Penn State's defense, and it sucked a lot of the, air out of the balloon for SMU's offense, and then that's when the struggle started. But before those pick sixes, they were moving it, and then they just did those interceptions were just costly at the end of the day, and that's what ended up hurting. All right, we go to the Peach Bowl. This is the second quarterfinal. 3 of them on New Year's Day. This is the first of the 3 quarterfinal games on New Year's Day. Peach Bowl, Texas, Arizona State. Texas 14-point favorites, 52 the total in this game. What a complete reversal for Texas against Clemson. We go into that game, their defense was playing awesome, and their offense was sputtering. They weren't finishing drives. They weren't obviously having issues getting those explosive plays. And then it kind of went reverse against Clemson, where suddenly the defense looked like it was giving up some points and some big plays. Like they struggled for a bit against Klubnik. Klubnik threw for 336 yards, against that Texas secondary. Now, the big positive for Texas's defense is there was zero run game to speak of for Clemson. And when we talk about the heartbeat of this Arizona State offense, it's Cam Skattebo running the football, who's been absolutely outstanding. So there's that Texas run defense, which has been pretty damn staunch all season long, going to hold up here. Again, 10th in the country as far as rushing yards per game allowed. Or is Cam Skattebo just that damn special that he's still going to have some success running the football here against a very good Texas run defense? Arizona State, obviously, they get the bye. This is going to be in Atlanta, the Peach Bowl, this game. They obviously, offensively, it's definitely their strength. You look at their defense, the numbers look solid. But against the better defenses, there was a game they gave up 31 to UCF. There's a game they gave up 23 to BYU. There's a game they gave up 31 to Kansas. I still think Texas, with what they can throw at you, with Wisner and Blue running the ball, and with what they've got at receiver with Golden and company, Ewers when he's on, and he was obviously very strong against Clemson. That's a better offense than a lot of the offenses that Arizona State has seen on this schedule of theirs, and probably going to be a good test for them going into this game, and we'll see if they're able to pass it. I think what I like about Arizona State and why I think they could maybe stay inside this number, because at 14 or better, I have some interest in the forks up, Arizona State, is that we know Skattebo and the run game has been the focal point of what's made this offense go. But we have to start talking about how much better the passing game was down the stretch and how good Sam Leavitt is becoming as a quarterback. He was really good down the stretch. And in the Big 12 championship game against Iowa State, despite playing without his top receiver in that game, Jordan Tyson, and from all indications, there's a damn good chance Jordan Tyson's going to be, or no, he's out for the season, Jordan Tyson. He's not coming back this year. Yeah, it was surgery with the collarbone, so they won't see him. But what I loved about the win against Iowa State, even without their top receiver, Guillory stepped up. Jalen Moss. They had other guys really have a great game for them in the receiving game, and Guillory's the one that stands out. He was phenomenal against Iowa State. And Sam Leavitt was making throws, even without the loss of his top receiver by far, Jordan Tyson, who's out for the season. So that gives me faith that Arizona State, with that increase and that solid passing game that complements Skattebo, and having the balance that I think you need if you're going to have any kind of success against this Texas Longhorns defense, can give Arizona State a chance to maybe put up some points here in this game. And again, we're talking about another controlled climate indoors, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. So, weather won't be an issue, fast track. I really like this over. I think Texas is going to be able to move the ball and score against Arizona State. And I think what we saw from Texas against Clemson is they got those big plays, those explosive plays again back in their arsenal, which kind of had disappeared for them against Georgia, and disappeared for them a little bit against Texas A&M in those two games in SEC play. They got back to the explosive plays. I still think from a defensive standpoint for Arizona State, this is probably arguably the best offense, one of the best offenses they faced all year. It'll be a step up for that ASU defense. But I think Sam Leavitt in the passing game and Skattebo is going to be up. Now, that offensive line against Texas's defensive line, it's going to be the interesting matchup. Can they hold up? But the one thing I like about Arizona State, they've had some good play calling. They've done some, trick plays. They've gotten Leavitt outside the pocket to try to open things up. And I think that kind of move the pocket, keep the quarterback outside the pocket, don't make him stationary, don't make him a sitting target, could help Arizona State to put up some points of their own here in this game as well. So I like this over more than anything. At 14 or better, though, I might grab a little piece of the Sun Devils here. Because, again, Texas covered against Clemson, but that defense in the second half kept letting Clemson kind of get back in the game. And that's concerning when you're laying 14 points like Texas is in this game. C-Mac, Peach Bowl, quarterfinal. What do you like?
Well, on the total, if it gets over, that just means Arizona State's going to have some success, I think, scoring. Like they get maybe to the 20s. Can they on this defense? I think this Texas defense is really good. I know they gave up some yards to Clemson, 10.5, and then the kind of the late touchdown there, or that touchdown on the fourth, got it over. I think they'll be ready. But I think Texas, if you look at them, I'd lean over Arizona State too, a really good over team with the number in this right here, right around 50, 51. 52. It just seems like their games when they've had it around there down the stretch, they've all gotten over. I have to trust. This is the biggest thing. What do you make from the Texas offense, from the big plays? If that happens, their team total cashes here, and that's what I kind of look at. It's like it should be like 32, I think, right around there. I'm guessing 33. If they're going, that easily cashes. They just can't struggle in the red zone, because I don't know how good this Arizona State defenses. I think it's pretty good, but we're talking they're playing Texas here, biggest game of the year, and I don't know. I think Texas wins this football game. I don't want to lay 14. I think you just look to their team total in this game, and Ken Scadaboo, you mentioned it. This will be the big thing. Like if he can run it, big things I think open up. Because if they shutting him down, there's problems. I think then there could be real issues. So the big man has got to get going. And I don't think Tyson, it didn't matter in their last game against Iowa State, but I think he's going to be a big miss in this game. Like, this is where you want him.
Yeah.
You know, in this huge game. They have some decent wideouts, like you were talking about, tight end. But, man, they miss him here to stretch the field.
They certainly will. There's no doubt. All right, Rose Bowl. Next up, the third quarterfinal. This is the second one on New Year's Day. Ohio State and Oregon. This is a regular season rematch that we have going with these two teams. Ohio State 2.5-point favorites, 54 being the total in this game. So here's what I saw from Ohio State against Tennessee. I saw a team that played to the level of their talent. And we said from the beginning of the season, outside of Georgia, Texas, you know, maybe a couple other teams, there's not many teams that had more overall talent, top to bottom, offense and defense than Ohio State. It was just a matter of can they finally play that way and play up to that level. And for one of the few times this year they did. I guess you could say they did offensively against Oregon in the first meeting, because they did move the ball against Oregon in that 32-31 loss in Eugene back on October the 12th. But defensively, they did struggle. They gave up 500 yards to Oregon in that game. Will Howard played really well in that game, too. But the problem is he made that mistake, forgot how much time was left on the clock, and didn't give his team a chance to try to kick the game-winning field goal at the end in the final seconds, and Oregon survived with a 32-31 win, a game that flew over the total, got into the 60s. What will we get here is the question. That's another over lean for me. Weather's not going to be an issue. Oregon, to me, offensively rocking and rolling right now. No question about that. A defensive-minded head coach in Dan Lanning, who's going to have the time now to implement a game plan defensively, which certainly gives Oregon, a chance to be successful defensively. But I continue to look at Oregon's defense, and I have concerns, growing concerns, because I look at a schedule where you faced UCLA, Michigan State, Purdue, Illinois, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin. And yes, of course, you're going to build up some phenomenal defensive stats, phenomenal defensive numbers playing against that group of teams. But against Ohio State in the regular season, they gave up 31 points, almost 500 yards. Against Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, they gave up 37 points. Penn State racks up, over 500 yards of offense, 292 on the ground. I think that was startling to me, that Penn State was able to get Allen and Singleton going for 229 yards rushing combined, to go with the 226 through the air from Drew Aller. So Oregon's defense statistically for the season looks great, but then you see all the weak offenses they've played, and the last two against Ohio State in the regular season, and of course Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, and there's that defense kind of getting rolled and giving up big plays and giving up yards, and more importantly, giving up points. And that's certainly something that concerns me. I saw a lot of leaks starting to spring in that Oregon defense late in the year, and that does bother me. That being said, the other side of the ball, there is no issue. Gabriel's been incredible. James and Whittington running the ball. Tez Johnson leading them at the receiver spot. weapons galore, an excellent offensive line. It's another game where I agree with the total going up. The question is going to be, the one thing that could hamper this total is Ohio State offense was phenomenal against Tennessee. And somehow with that banged up offensive line, they made it work. And Tennessee was supposed to have an advantage with that defensive front. And somehow Ohio State made it work. But you know why it worked? It's because Will Howard got the ball out quickly. I give Chip Kelly credit. He learned from his mistakes against Michigan. We're not just going to try to run the football 3-4 yards into a cloud of dust. We're going to let Will Howard air it out and let this phenomenal freshman show his skills and talent in Jeremiah Smith. And that combo of Howard and Jeremiah Smith was phenomenal. They shredded that Tennessee team. I'm just hoping Chip stays on the gas pedal. That's how this team is going to win. Take advantage of what you got at receiver. Don't just be so conservative and just run all the time. Air it out. Chuck the football. Be balanced. Give Will Howard a chance to make those throws downfield to Jeremiah Smith, who is good enough to catch those 50-50 balls, as we've seen all season long. If they stay with that aggressive offensive game plan that worked against Tennessee, I think this game probably does go over, because I see Ohio State scoring if that's the case. Oregon's defense, in the best offenses they've played, did not do as well. But on the flip side, Ohio State's defense, as dominant as they were against Tennessee, that Oregon offense is pretty special when they've got it going. And Ohio State didn't have a ton of answers for Oregon's offense in the first meeting, giving up 32 points in that game. So the over is in play, in my opinion. I got to admit, though, from a side perspective, now, if we get the Michigan game of Ohio State, Oregon's winning 100%, not even a question. But as long as this doesn't touch 3, I get the feeling Ohio State might avenge that loss and win. Because at the moment, if you ask me, with 2 teams I think can move the ball here, which team defensively could be more capable of getting that stop? Believe it or not, I might say Ohio State right now, because that Oregon defense, I'm telling you, what I saw against Penn State really alarmed me. Penn State went up and down the field against them, and then Ohio State did in the first meeting. And if Will Howard remembers, he's got to get down and preserve a chance at a field goal. They might have won in Eugene earlier this season in October. So I think I'm going to side with the Buckeyes here. Maybe this is not the right time, because they heard from everyone how bad they were and how awful that loss was against Michigan, and Ryan Day's on the hot seat, and they certainly rallied the troops, and they had that team meeting that Ryan Day talked about after the Tennessee win, and they got everyone on the same page. Like, we're not going out like that. We got to show we're better than that. Now everyone's going to pump them up now, CMAC, until January 1st, say how great they are. And now maybe we get the old Ohio State where, again, they shit the bed here in this big spot. Now everyone's going to be pumping their tires again. But I am telling you right now, if Ohio State plays up to the level of the talent on this roster, I think they're going to beat Oregon. That's where I'm at with this game. CMAC, what do you think here? Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I know. This is just how it is. They got in 2 losses. Oregon's, undefeated. And here's the rematch. They lose, they're gone. I think this is a good game. You know what I have to say? Let's talk about the total, Van. It's too low. This goes up. Just too much speed, too many athletes. As good as the defense have been, Ohio State a little bit better. And Oregon kind of did what it showed. When it played Penn State, Oregon, they got, gashed a little bit. And when you go back to that game, Oregon had almost 500 yards just about of offense. Ohio State had 470. It's just when they play Wisconsin, all these teams like you mentioned, they look pretty good. And I was impressed. It's been one of the better Oregon defenses, because I just think in years past they could give a ton of points. And in these matchups they have, even when they played Ohio State the last 4 or 5 years, these games were higher and they've gone over. I just think it's too light with all the speed that's on both sides of the football. Ohio State needs to do what they can. The offensive line kind of is what it is, but I think they'll have success. And you're right. They got to throw it with Howard. Don't make him stationary, get him out, moving the ball. You know what I mean? Like some bootlegs, get him and move in and throw some deep balls, because I think they can have plenty of success here. And Oregon with Gabriel, I think he keeps them in this football game. Whether they can win or not, I think this is just kind of where this line is. It's a coin flip. The rematches have not been great, to teams at all. So this should be good. I think you just take the over here. I think both teams, I don't trust the defenses, especially after seeing the Penn State game. And they've seen each other. You could go off that, but still, I think the success will just be too much. James, in that game, too, Howard had 326. Now, if I had someone to have the ball at the end, though, I'd rather have Gabriel. I still don't trust Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, good game, but they played it. Come on, they played it fucking home. Freezing cold against a Tennessee team that couldn't throw the goddamn
ball. The weather
ball.
wasn't great that night either in Eugene in October, and they still got into the 60s, and it was just back and forth type of game. So you're right. I thought with where this total is 54, it felt light. Yep.
Yeah, I think it is too light. I think the defenses are getting too much love to talk about in these big games. You get two teams like this, it just seems to go over. Like they just do. I try to find an argument for an under sometimes because I've kind of rolled with a lot of these overs in these big bowl games or national championships, and they seem to get there, and I think this one does here.
All right, last game for this edition of Hitting the Books. It's also the last of the 4 quarterfinals. New Year's Day, the nightcap in the Sugar Bowl. We've got Notre Dame and Georgia, and currently we've got Georgia 1.5, 2-point favorites here in this game. The total sitting at 44, pretty much across the board here for the Sugar Bowl, the final quarterfinal game. Now, this is the one game I wouldn't be in a rush to bet over, but obviously it's priced like it with this total here sitting at 44. Georgia's going to have to win with their defense, and they know it. They're obviously in a bit of a difficult spot. And despite his flaws, despite the mistakes and the inconsistencies at times, there's still a drop-off massively from Carson Beck to Gunnar Stockton. There's no doubt. And yes, Kirby Smart and the coaching staff are going to have a couple weeks to get Gunnar Stockton ready for the huge game already, thrust in having to start a college football playoff quarterfinal game. And certainly that could be a bit of an issue for Georgia to have to overcome. But the defense is good enough to carry them. And we saw it against Texas. Look at that game. Picture perfect how the defense carried them to victory there because the offense wasn't great against Texas either. They were getting outgained significantly, especially in that first half. And yet there's the defense just doing everything they can to hang in there and give Georgia a chance to win. They're good enough defensively to do that here against Notre Dame. The question for Notre Dame is going to be Riley Leonard avoiding mistakes, Riley Leonard using his athleticism and being able to make plays outside the pocket against this Georgia defense. And he's going to have to make a few. There's no doubt because whether Jeremiah Love gets going in this game is definitely in doubt facing this Georgia defensive front, which, as I've said for the year, 128.3 rushing yards per game allowed, 36th. I guess my question is, how great is this Notre Dame offensive line? Because they lost some pieces from last year's team, which was such a great offensive line. And I know their starting center got injured early in the year. Now you're going to have to try to measure up, and can you get Jeremiah Love going on the ground here and have that kind of success with him that obviously he had against Indiana over the weekend, especially that big long run. But it's funny, he had that big long 98-yard run and was kind of held in check other than that against Indiana. They've got to be able to have some ability to run this football because, again, the passing game for Notre Dame is still kind of a work in progress with them. It's always been a team that, they've got to be able to stay balanced. You can't have Riley Leonard be a one-dimensional pass. It can't be a one-dimensional offense through the air only, or else it's going to be a tough night for Notre Dame here against this Georgia defense. They've got to be able to stay out of the chains. You've got to be able to have Jeremiah Love have some success, and when he's being bottled up, Riley Leonard's got to make an impact running the football as well, which he's capable of. That's a big question mark here. This number's in a very good spot because I think Georgia's defense still could be good enough to win them the game, but Gunnar Stockton's the great unknown. And the question is Notre Dame's defense and the solid, strong performance we saw from them against Indiana, where they played very well on the defensive side of the football. They stopped the run. They got pressure on Curtis Rourke. Can that carry over here against Georgia? And remember, the Georgia offensive line at times this year has been wobbly. You've got a very inexperienced quarterback in a big-time pressure spot now on the other side. I'm honestly leaning Notre Dame, but I feel better with them at 3 or better. I don't know if I want to just with a guy that's been here, done that before in these big spots like Kirby, to be able to just say, let's line it up and just take Notre Dame to win this game, only getting 2. But I've got some hesitation to back Georgia as a small favorite. If you tell me their defense is going to force some turnovers against Riley Leonard, get some stops and when Notre Dame's driving and hold them off and hold them to field goals and or on 4th down stops, and this defense is just going to somehow wrangle Georgia to victory the way they did against that defense did for them against Texas, then I'd definitely be on Georgia because I still feel there's a bit of an advantage in the trenches for them. But Notre Dame here does have a significant experience edge, and they might even have a talent edge in quarter. Maybe if you give Stockton a full season, he's going to show he's great because Georgia, all they do is recruit great players, 4 or 5 stars. And Gunnar Stockton in time maybe is going to be a great quarterback. But right now you can't say that Riley Leonard isn't the better quarterback. He's more experienced. He's certainly played well enough this season for Notre Dame. And that's certainly something that tilts the scales in Notre Dame's favor. Oh, and they're catching points. So I am leaning Notre Dame. I just like them a lot more if I was getting at least a field goal, which I'm not at the moment. C-Mac, what do you think here? Notre Dame, Georgia, Sugar Bowl.
Well, I think if it's a little bit like you talked about the Ohio State game, if they bring the A game here, they win. But there's just a lot of question marks with Stockton and the defense that went from kind of quarter to quarter, really half to half. What were you getting? That's why they didn't cover numbers this year. The first half versus Texas versus the second. We saw that a ton. We saw them get their ass kicked against Georgia Tech and have to come all the way back to that crazy.
They couldn't stop the run and the quarterback run from Haynes King, and they go from that to doing what they did against Texas in the SEC championship game. Schizophrenic.
Yeah, it is. So I think Notre Dame can have some success running it. We will see. Like, normally what I do is for the last 5 years at Notre Dame, they failed in these games. When they've had to play in the bigger games against the SEC, they've lost. When I look at this, I think this is their best chance, though. And basically just kind of a flip them here. It's moved to 1.5, 2 for Georgia, and I get it. That's where people want to be. But I think this could be Notre Dame's best shot with Riley Leonard, this defense that's been really, really good. But we go back to the schedule. Man, you hit on it before the Indiana game. We talked about it. This is just a little bit another step up in a huge, huge game. Man, it should be a lot of fun. I think both defenses are good. I think this game is close. Really, really close. Seems like a quarterback make a mistake in Leonard or Stockton. I think Stockton's going to be pretty good here. I think he's going to do just enough. We saw him come in. He's a tough kid and played pretty good. I don't really have anything. I don't want to give you something because I have better. I got nothing. I don't know if I move here on this game. I'm going to sit with it for a while, but it should be good.
Here's a good strategy.
Both great defenses. Notre Dame's defense is just really, really good all year long. Let's see that again. I got to see it some more.
Here's a good strategy. Whoever scores first in this game, bet against them. If you can get, something like 6.5, 7 as an underdog with either of these teams, take it. Because that's, to me, the move to make. Might just be because I lean Notre Dame, but if I can get maybe Georgia gets an early field goal or touchdown or something, and I can get 6 or 7 with Notre Dame, then I'd maybe grab it. That being said, if Notre Dame scores first, I actually might be tempted to go the other way and take Georgia at that same number live, because I don't think either team's going to separate from the other, given the circumstances. Notre Dame is good enough to hang here.
I think so in the trenches, where it's been a problem in the past. Yeah.
That's why this number's in a great spot. Give me a 3, I'm on Notre Dame. Now the current number, I'm a little leery to take them. But if I find something at 6.5, 7 with Notre Dame in particular, then I'll jump on it live in game at some point. But right now, I'll tell you this right now. Definitely, I lean Notre Dame +2. But like I said, I'm hoping for 3 or better.
Irish, baby. Come on. One time. Irish fucking win here. Big
And
game.
remember, this is the Superdome, Caesar Superdome, home of the Saints in New Orleans. So there'll be a lot of Georgia faithful there. That being said, this is Notre Dame. This is one of America's teams in college football. Notre Dame green will be there in full force too. You're going to get a lot of Notre Dame fans. It's not like Georgia is going to completely outnumber Notre Dame fans, because this is arguably the biggest Notre Dame game in like years, easily. Especially with the
Biggest
caliber
game,
of opponent you're playing. No question.
Since Bama,
yeah,
and they lost the national championship. They did play Clemson.
Yeah,
they lost that game. They couldn't score.
Semifinal, and then there was the championship game with Brian Kelly way back when against Alabama, where they just got absolutely destroyed in that game.
God, don't remind me.
That's the thing. Brian Kelly's not there anymore. I'm going to open the door for Marcus Freeman, to show me he's kind of ready for these moments like this. So, like I said, that's a great game. That's a terrific game to finish the quarterfinal round on New Year's Day in the Sugar Bowl. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Again, we've got we're looking forward to the bowl games and, of course, the quarterfinal round. Our next show for the call, we're going to have a college basketball show this Friday, the usual time, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on Friday. We'll get you ready for the weekend in college basketball. It's a big card on Saturday, so we'll be on Friday with that. But no more college football show until Monday, January the 6th in the new year. That will be our next college football show 2 weeks from now, Monday, January 6th. And on that show, we'll talk about the semifinals. It'll be semifinal week in the playoffs. So we'll be on for a short show on Monday, January 6th. And then Monday, January 13th will be our national championship preview show, which will be our season finale for the college football hitting the books show for the season. So we got 2 shows left coming up in January. C-Mac, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, shout out to every one of your oldie Kongs clips, my dude. Yeah, Big O. Wow, fourth quarter here, Babana. 44-15. Kings got over the number here.
Yes, it did.
Coastal UTSA. Wow, wild fourth. Devin the dude, what up, what up? Nut Flush. My man, shout out to Nut Flush Allen. Nut Flush 16. He's a kid again. Nunya, Dana, Del, Al Cervic. Shout out to all you guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you in 2 weeks? Is that right? Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
We'll see you Friday.
College football show is Monday, January 6th, but we will be on Friday this week, college basketball.
And bingo. And when we get back to January 6th, we're going to figure out, we'll have a few more college basketball shows during the week, 1 or 2.
Exactly.
So
we've got
January 6th
for that. 13 for college football, but starting that week of January 6th, we're going to start doing some through the week college basketball shows as well.
A couple days. Yeah.
We've got it planned to do some combo of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, along with the Friday show, because those are the days with the big games, especially Wednesday and Thursday. Those are the ones where there's always a lot of games on the slate. So, and like I said, we're going to keep these shows nice and short, the college basketball. We're going to do 1 hour tops, same format that we've been doing, the marquee games that Connor and I like outside of that we'll mention, and then best bets. Nice, simple format. With the college basketball shows, and we'll have many more of those coming up in the new year. Friday, and maybe we might even do Tuesday, because Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are all good slates for college basketball. So we might give you 4 days a week coming up in the new year. We'll see. But shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Merry Christmas to everyone that watches this show. Enjoy the time with your family and friends. And again, we will see you January 6th. For the next edition of the College Football Hitting the Books show. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Christmas. Merry Christmas to all. Thanks for watching us. Hit the like button on the way out. Remember, we're on Friday with the college basketball show. We'll be back with you in the new year, January 6th, Monday, January 6th, for the next edition of the College Football Hitting the Books show. Thanks for watching. And as always, class dismissed.